Hello, I'm Adrian. In this video I'm going to try and show you some ways to make your rhythm guitar more interesting or less boring. And if you think what I just played was boring, then I'm afraid I won't be able to help you. You can go and watch something else. Watch some cats. Watch some cats being funny, doing their funny cat things. People say to me quite often, I know my open chords, I know my bar chords, I know my triads. I consider myself to be quite a good player, but I really struggle to make my rhythm guitar interesting. So I'm going to try and give you a bit of inspiration now. I've put together a little piece or study, which is what I played just now. And I'm actually going to stop filming in just a second and learn what I played because it was kind of semi-improvised. But once I've done that, I'm going to take you through it. And you've got the option of learning the whole thing note for note, or you might like to just sift through it for things that you find stimulating. This is all loosely, I suppose, in a kind of soul guitar style, though I don't think any of the ideas that I'm going to talk about are genre specific. You can use them just about anywhere. This kind of thing will work well in a band context, and it will also work really well if you're playing on your own because it uses a kind of chord and fills type of approach that doesn't really need any kind of accompaniment. Great for those moments where you find yourself in a guitar shop or in a jam session and you think, what am I going to play? And your mind goes blank and you go, my playing sucks. For those moments, this kind of thing might be helpful. So let's get down to business. So as a guitar player, you're very often faced with the situation where you have a basic chord progression and you need to come up with some kind of part. And ideally it's going to be an amazing and inspired part that's going to perfectly fit the song. So in order to be able to do that, I think the first step is to learn and understand the chord progression. So what I've done for this video is I've put together this simple, fairly generic chord progression. And what we're dealing with here is it's a chord progression in the key of G. And as you can see, we've got G, and then it goes to D, and then C, and back to G again. So one way you could describe that is G is the 1 chord, then you're going to the 5 chord, then the 4 chord, and then back to the 1 chord again. So it's a 1 5 4 1 chord progression, and that 1 5 4 1 just repeats. And then we've got a little B section, I suppose, and we've got some minor chords in there. We've got an E minor, then B minor, A minor, and then C minor. So what's going on there? All of these chords, or most of these chords, are still in the key of G major. We've got the 6 chord, which is minor, and the 3 chord, the 2 chord, and then to take us back to the 1, we've actually got a C minor. So that steps a little bit outside the key of G major, but it's actually a very common to use a 4 minor chord. And then it goes back to the A section once again. So we've got the 1 5 4 5. That's our basic chord progression. So what are we going to do with these chords? And your first thoughts might be, well, I could do something like this. Or maybe I could try something like this. Absolutely nothing wrong with those things, by the way, and there are cases where that kind of thing might be the perfect part for the song, but for today let's explore some more interesting possibilities. So let me take you through my little piece, and I should say at the outset that this piece is designed to illustrate lots of possibilities, and in reality it will probably be overplaying to cram all of this stuff into a single song. I kick off the piece with something like this. So as you can hear, I'm stating our basic chord progression quite clearly. This is the first 4 bars, and the chords, if you remember, are G for 1 bar, then D, C, and back to G. And I'm just using some simple bar chord shapes here. So 6th string root G major, 5th string root D, and 5th string root C. And the first idea for making your rhythm guitar a bit more interesting is to connect the chords together with some little single note lines. So the first beat or so of each of these bars, I'm stating the chord itself quite clearly. So I'm starting off with the G chord, just just playing the bass notes, and then I'm hitting the higher part of the chord on beat 2. It's kind of 1, and then we've got the first of these little connecting lines. And the notes of these single note lines are coming from the key itself, so you could see these lines as coming from the G major scale. So that first line, you can see all notes taken from the G major scale. So I'm sliding up to the 7th fret on the 6th string, and then 5th fret on the A. I've just got a little flutter, 5, 7, 5 on the A, and then I'm back to the 7th fret on the low E. That's our first bar. And that's leading us to our D chord, and I'm just doing the same thing on the D chord. I'm playing the root note of the chord on beat 1, and then on beat 2 I'm playing the higher part of that chord. Then I've got another connecting single note line, still taken from the G major scale here, and it's really those same notes. I've got an A to B hammer on, and then a D, and then B, A, B. That's taking us to the C chord. Same thing, and another connecting line. This is very similar to what we were doing on the E and the A, just taken over onto the A and D. So it was sliding up to the 7th fret, and then 5 to 7 on the D, 7 to 5, ending on 7 on the A. And that takes us back to the G again. And then I think I'm just doing this, which is it's a G triad, 5 on the D, 4 on the G, 3 on the B, and I was putting down my little finger at 5 on the G to get a G sus sound. So it's G sus, then releasing the little finger to get G. That's our opening 4 bars. So starting off quite simply, I think, just stating the chords clearly and having some tasteful little connections between those chords. Next 4 bars, we're dealing with the same chords, but we're just developing things a little bit, getting a little bit more elaborate with our fills. So I'm going to start off in exactly the same way on the G chord. Then we've got D. I'm doing something a bit different on the D. I'm stating the chord, then I'm moving up 2 frets and doing this little fill, and this is the style of rhythm playing that's often described as Hendrix style, though I'm sure Hendrix wasn't the originator of this particular style of rhythm playing. Lots of players do this kind of thing, but it's the idea where you play double stops and then hammer-ons, and you just get some really nice fills. Definitely Hendrixian, but also used in a lot of soul guitar. So we've got the D chord, and then I'm playing a double stop. This is the 7th fret on the D and G, and then I'm hammering down with my 3rd finger at the 9th fret on the D. And you want to hammer down in such a way that the G string is still left ringing. And then I'm going back to the double stop. Then I'm doing exactly the same thing, but moved over to the A and the D strings. And this is a fill which fits the D chord harmony. And one way of seeing this sound is that the notes are taken from the D major pentatonic scale. A lot of these fills, I mean, all of the notes are in the key, so they're in the G major scale, but also they're going to sound best if you're thinking about the chord of the moment that you're playing over. In this case I'm playing over a D chord, and the notes in the D major pentatonic scale are going to fit that chord really nicely. So I think that's what I'm thinking here. Then we're moving to the C chord. This time I'm playing the C chord up here at the 8th fret with a 6-string root bar chord, and then a fill over the C chord. And that's the same thing that I did on the D chord, but moved down 2 frets. So you could see this is the C major pentatonic scale. And I've got the double stop at the 5th fret, hammer on, and then moving that over. And I think this time I'm varying the rhythm slightly, so I'm going slightly different from up here. And then down at the 5th fret. And that's taking us back to the G again. So that's the second group of 4 bars. And then we're on into the B section of the tune, and if you remember, the basic chords for the B section are E minor for 4 beats, B minor for 4 beats, A minor for 4 beats, and then C minor for 4 beats. And for the first B section I decided to keep things quite simple. I'm just doing something quite funky and rhythmic. One thing I'm doing is I'm just making some of these chords 7th chords, and I'm just decorating the basic chords a little bit. So usually if you've got basic major or minor chords, you've got the choice of making them 7th chords, and that just adds a little bit more colour. So instead of just playing a straight E minor, I'm making that an E minor 7 here. So that's 7 on the A, 9 on the D, 7 on the G, 8 on the B, and 7 on the high E rather. And I'm just setting up a funky rhythm there, adding in my little finger at the 10th fret from time to time, just to add an extra bit of colour. Doing a very similar thing on the B minor. I'm turning that into a B minor 7, so barring all the way across at the 7th fret and playing the 9th fret on the A string as well. And then I'm just adding in my little finger at the 10th fret sometimes as well. Same thing on the A minor, I'm just moving that B minor 7 down to make it an A minor 7. And then we've got C minor, and I'm playing a C minor 9 here. So just on the top 4 strings I'm playing 8th fret on the D, G, B, and then I'm hitting that 9th there, it's the 10th fret on the high E string. Just keeping a 16th note rhythm going there. And then we're back to the A section again for another 4 bars. And so this time I'm making it a little bit more elaborate. I've got our opening phrase repeated again. But then over the D chord I'm sliding up into that D major pentatonic shape. So I'm coming from this D chord, sliding up into the 3rd, really into a first inversion D shape. Again, something you hear a lot in the playing of Jimi Hendrix. Sliding up into that shape. That's 9 on the A, 7 on the D. Another one of these double stop hammer-ons. That's at the 7th fret on the D and the G. All of that fitting over the D chord. Over the C, I'm going. So this is all taken from the C major pentatonic, or chord tones around this C chord. I think a good way to think about a lot of these rhythm guitar ideas is to see them as belonging to these basic chord shapes, and seeing these little hammer-ons and extra decorations that you've got available to you around your basic chord shape. So here I'm thinking out of this C major position, and the little fill that I'm doing is this. So sliding up to the 9th fret on the G, 8 on the B, back to the 9th fret on the G, and then this little double stop, so 8th fret on the top 2 strings, hammering down to the 10th fret, and then another double stop on the G and the B. This is 7 and 8 on the G and the B, hammering down to the 9th fret on the G, sliding down on the D string, 9, 7, 5, and then I've got some thirds on the D and the G, so this is 9 and 7, 7 and 5, 5 and 4, which takes us back to the G chord. So I think things are getting a little bit more complex. Now let me just play those 4 bars slowly for you. And that's the end of our first section of the piece, the first chorus, if you like. On into the second chorus then. The chords are exactly the same, I'm just treating them in a slightly different way rhythm guitar wise. Once again, let's take this in 4-bar chunks, and the next 4 bars go like this. So starting once again with the G chord, and I'm just clearly stating that chord. Then I'm going into this little idea based on 6. This is another way to make your rhythm guitar more interesting, is to think about using intervals taken from the keys. So 6, 4ths, 3rds, all of which I'm using in this piece. Now this phrase here is built using diatonic 6ths, and 6 are these little shapes here called 6ths because the notes in them are 6 notes apart in the musical alphabet. Diatonic because all of the notes are taken from the key, taken from the G major scale. So one little exercise you might try just to get to grips with this idea is just playing a G major scale harmonized in 6. That would look like this. And the actual phrase that I'm playing in this piece goes like this. We've got, so we're starting off with these shapes played on the G and the high E strings. We're sliding up to the 7th fret, then the 5th fret, then 4 on the G, 3 on the high E. And the important thing here when you're using these 6, I mean all of these shapes are fair game when you're playing over a song in the key of G, but some of these shapes are probably going to sound better than others at any given moment. And what is usually going to sound best is if you're landing on strong chord tones, the notes in the actual chord of the moment. So here, for instance, I'm landing on this shape here, which is the 3rd and the 5th of the G chord. So landing on those strong chord tones is usually a good idea. And ways of doing this, you can think about it theoretically. Your ear will get used to doing that if you practice playing in this style. Also, I think the simplest thing is just to see these shapes as part of bigger chords that you already know. So this little 6 shape, I'm thinking about that as being part of this big G major bar chord. The phrase continues like this. So we're moving on to the B and the D strings at the 7th fret, sliding from the 5th to the 7th really, and then coming down to the 4th and the 3rd frets. And once again we're landing on strong chord tones. Now the chord we're playing over is D, and you can see those notes as being part of this D chord grip here. And continuing with this, that's really the same shapes once again, but this time we're going down to here. And you can see clearly that those 2 notes are part of this C major chord grip. So we've got, I'm using a little hammer on there I think, so I'm holding down this F sharp and D, and then I'm hammering down with my 3rd finger and my little finger at the 5th fret before resolving it to the C chord. And then the last bit here is So a little bit different now. I'm just going into a kind of C major arpeggio. So again, thinking in terms of chords here. So this is a C major chord that I'm playing over. Those are notes from the chord. It's 7 on the A, and then 5 on the D, G, B, and then sliding from 7 to 8 on the B, and then hitting 7 on the top string, which is taking us back to the G sound again. Next 4 bars sounds like this. Once again, I'm thinking in terms of intervals here. There's a lot of stuff based on fourths. So starting out on the G major chord, but I've changed my G major voicing. Rather than playing the G down here, one option you've got to spice up your rhythm guitar is just to play some different voicings. You don't always have to play the same shape. So here I'm playing a more unusual G major shape, but it's still nice, I think, this shape. It's a kind of C form of G major. That's 10 on the A, 9 on the D, 7 on the G, 8 on the B. And then I've got this idea based on fourths, and these are fourths diatonic to G major once again. So I like to think of these little shapes just hiding around this chord. So I'm sliding up to 9 and 10 on the G and B, moving that shape 2 frets lower, and then 9 on the D and the G, and then I'm sliding up to the 9th fret and then down to the 7th fret, 9 on the A, 7 on the D and the G, and then more of this sliding between 7 and 9, and then really doing the same thing 2 frets lower, so at the 7th and the 5th frets. So that's kind of nicely, that's outlining the D sound, and then here outlining the C sound. You can really hear the chords moving clearly in your rhythm guitar part. And then I wrap up with this phrase. And this is just a little G major pentatonic phrase. So 2 on the G, open G, 2-0 on the D, 2 on the A. And sliding up to this B note here on the G string, D, and a G bass note. And we're going into the second B section. The chord is now E minor, and I'm outlining that with some more fourths. I'm sliding up to the 12th fret on the top 2 strings, back to the 10th fret, and then 12 on the G and the B, back up to 12 on the high E and B. Just playing a low E bass note there as well. Chord changes to B minor, and now I'm thinking about this B minor chord shape up here at the 14th fret, and playing another little Hendrixy type phrase, I suppose. So I'm holding down 14 on the G, 15 on the B, and hammering down at the 16th fret on the G, 17th on the D, and then 14th fret on the D and the G, hammer on to the 16th fret, root note, and then 15th fret on the B. So that's a B minor 7 chord there. Just walking that down to an A minor 7. Just kind of funkily strumming that chord, maybe adding in my little finger at the 15th fret on the top string. And And then we've got the C minor or C minor 7 again, and once again I'm going for this kind of C minor 9 shape that I used in the first chorus. Leading back to the G chord just with another one of these little bass line ideas. That's 7/5 on the A, 7/5 on the low E, open low E, back to the root of the G chord. Restating the opening idea of this piece, then D. And got an idea based on thirds here. So playing the D chord, and then this is 9 on the G, 8 on the B. Sliding that up 2 frets and then back again. 7 on the G and the B, 9 on the D. And then just wrapping things up now. So more thirds, this is just 9 on the G, 8 on the B. This is now the C chord I'm outlining. Jumping down to this C bar chord. And just the final phrase. You could see this as G major pentatonic, I think. It's 3rd fret on the top 2 strings, hammering down on this E note here. And then 4/2 open on the G, and then 2 to 4 slide, 3 on the B, 2 on the G, 1 on the B, and then open G and B. Just play a low G bass note there to finish. Gear for this video, and I'm going for some quite traditional soul guitar vibes here, thinking stacks or muscle shoals. So guitar wise I'm using my Telecaster, which is a 52 reissue. I've got both the bridge and the neck pickups on together, so the selector switch is in the middle, volume and tone on full. From there I'm going into my mini pedal board, actually only using one pedal, and that is the Wampler Tumnus, which is an overdrive pedal. Although I'm going for quite a clean sound here, I've just got that pedal on, which just seems to warm and thicken up the sound slightly. From there I'm going into my Fender Deluxe, which is really the perfect amp for this kind of thing, and it's actually a really nice Fender Deluxe. It's a 64 custom hand wired, great sounding amp, and I've got that set. The volume's on about 3, which is actually still really loud, and trebles on 6, bass on 4, and just a little bit of spring reverb from the amp as well. That's set on about 3. And that is about all we have time for today. Hope you enjoy playing around with some of these ideas. If you are a nerd like me, then you may enjoy trying to learn the whole piece note for note, in which case there's going to be some detailed music and tab up on my Patreon page that may help you. But really I think the best approach with this is just to get a feel for the basic ideas and then try and make them your own. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.